The Detroit Pistons have their winning streak snapped by the Golden State Warriors. They lose this tough game at home by 3 points. We'll break down what went wrong in this game and why they lost this game in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Ku Kahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Kahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day, and we're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. We are now under 700 subscribers away from 10,000 subscribers. That is our goal by the end of the season. 50% of you guys who watch and listen to the podcast have not subscribed, so if you want to find the best way to support me, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I really would appreciate it. We're on our way there by the end of this season. Or you can leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Also, head over to LockedOnDaily.com. Type in your email, and you'll get a Locked On Pistons daily newsletter along with your Locked On Pistons daily podcast every single day, Monday through Friday. Trying to get to the top 10 in amount of subscribers with that as well. So, a bunch of ways to support the podcast and showcase that we are the best fan base at Locked On. So, appreciate all of that from you guys. So the Pistons had their winning streak snapped at 5 games. They lose this game to the Golden State Warriors 107-104. A little later, I want to really dive into some of the weaknesses that Golden State was able to really exploit and put on display for the Detroit Pistons and discuss those. And also, I want to talk about later in the podcast some silver linings, some good things that did happen, and some good things that you can still take away from some stuff. But let's go ahead and break down what went wrong in this game and how the Pistons lost. I do want to say off the top, though, I want everyone to understand this. The Pistons are 19-19. They were just on a 5-game winning streak. They have a chance to get back above 500 against the Toronto Raptors on Saturday. Everyone should not get too down in the dumps about this loss. We'll break down this loss. It was a tough loss. But let's not go too crazy over it. This team still is a lot better. You still should feel good about this team. And I loved seeing LCA packed tonight. I was at the game credentialed, and the stadium was packed. It was loud at the end of the game. I loved seeing that. This team is a lot better. They're going to be a pretty good team. There's a lot of hope. And this team deserves your guys' support, man. So keep showing out and showing up for this team, man. Don't let one game get rid of everything that we've seen. This is still a lot of hope with this team and promise. I want to start off with that. Now, what's going to hurt the most about this loss is that I'm sure the Pistons probably feel like they should have won. I'm sure the Pistons probably feel like this is a game they can't lose. And you may be asking, Ku, they were down for the majority of this game after the first quarter. Why should they have felt like that? There was one point when they were down by 15, 17 in the fourth quarter, early fourth quarter. Why should they feel like that? Well, Steph Curry shot 5 of 21 in this game. He shot 2 of 14. Steph Curry can get anything going. I mean, absolutely. Steph played probably the worst game that he's probably going to play all season. That was his worst game. I can't imagine he had another game as bad as this. When Steph Curry plays that bad against you, you have to take advantage. You have to take advantage. You have to be able to win that game. That's the main reason why I feel like they probably are in the locker room saying to themselves, man, it wasn't even Steph that killed us. Their leading scorer was Buddy Hield at 19 points. Like, they're probably sitting there saying, we stopped the best player, and we still lost. Like, we have to win that one. But the reason why the Pistons lost this game, there's multiple reasons. But one, they came out this game extremely flat. Right out the gate, they got an early lead. I believe it was 14-5. Golden State calls a timeout, and then everything after that, they were just completely flat. Golden State, I believe, went on a 21-4 run after that. Didn't turn back. Pistons started turning the ball over. The Golden State Warriors started dominating them on the offensive glass. The Pistons just had no answer and looked like they were lacking energy from then all the way till halftime. So the Warriors just went at them early after getting hit in the face a little bit early. Golden State calls a timeout, and then they just responded, and Detroit just was not able to respond. It seemed like they were lacking energy. That's one. The other reason why the Pistons lost this game, I don't want you to get confused by the low score. If you watch this game, you should know this. But if you missed this game, don't let the low score fool you. The Pistons' defense was horrible in this game. Absolutely dreadful. Their defense was so bad that JB Bickerstaff, for the first time all year, whipped out a zone against the Golden State Warriors in this third quarter. He went to a zone. And initially, the zone got the Pistons back into the game and kind of threw Golden State for some sorts. But when you play zone, you don't have box out responsibilities. It's hard to box out. And Golden State just started to dominate the glass. Absolutely dominate the offensive glass. So that ended up killing the Pistons. The Warriors had 15 offensive rebounds. 15 offensive rebounds. That is absurd. That's crazy. And it was all stemming from the fact that the Pistons could not stop the Warriors. The Warriors, everyone knows the Warriors have ran this split action since Steve Kerr has taken over the Golden State Warriors. And obviously, it still works and it's effective, or you wouldn't still be using it 8 years later and they wouldn't have won 4 champions. Like, okay, yeah, I get it. But I can't imagine that I've seen a team that struggled as badly as the Pistons did to guard the Warriors split action. Like, they were getting layups every single time down the floor. Every single time down the floor. I don't know whose fault it was, but almost every single defensive possession, the Piston players, there were at least 3 guys looking at each other, wondering, what happened? Why weren't you here? Why weren't you there? They never were on the same page with what they were supposed to be doing defensively in man, and the Warriors were just dominating them with ball movement. Dominating them with ball movement and player movement. The Pistons could not handle the player movement, and they could not, and this is the thing about Steph, too, that makes him such a joy to watch, if you want me to be honest. Steph had a 5 of 21 game, but he probably contributed to like 50 points. Simply because when Steph comes off an off-ball screen, the Pistons, I can't tell, like probably north of 10 times. Steph comes off the off-ball screen, they go and double him, and they get a wide-open dunk or a wide-open layup. Like, I could get it happening a few times, but it consistently happening all the way until the fourth quarter, even with like 2 minutes left when you're cutting into the deficit, they're still doing it. I mean, at a certain point, you just got to switch across the board. Like, you can't do it all night, but they had no answer for it. They had no answer for his movement. They had no answer for Buddy Hield's movement off-ball screens. Like, they had absolute zero answer for the Warriors player movement. They had zero answers for it. And then to add on to it, when they did happen to miss the Warriors, they got an offensive rebound. I mean, the Warriors didn't shoot that great from the field. Like I just said, Steph shot 5 of 21, 2 of 14 from deep. Didn't matter, though, because they got offensive rebounds and everyone else was scoring. They had dudes I've never heard of, Walters III and Santos. They had 3 and 4 threes apiece. They combined for 24 points. I had never even heard of those 2 guys before this game. I'm not going to lie to you. It is what it is. Call me a casual. It is what it is. I've never heard of those guys. But the Pistons, their defense was putrid. And the fact that they had to go to his own defense lets you know that JB was just out of answers. He was, we have no chance in man. Let's go zone and hope this works. So the defense really let them down. They couldn't get stops, and they couldn't trust themselves to just execute whatever their defensive game plan was. And it was hard to understand what the game plan was defensively because it felt like there was a miscommunication on almost every single possession guarding that player movement. That's first. Or I think that's the second reason. But then the other thing, I mean, Cade had a putrid first half. I think that's one of the biggest reasons, too. Cade played probably his worst half, one of his worst halves of the season in that first half. He had 5 turnovers. It was bad. He wasn't hitting shots. I guess they must have took one of his turnovers away because he ended the game before. He must have took one of them away. But he played one of his worst first halves of the season. Now, he ended up bouncing back and playing incredible in the fourth quarter, playing a good second half, ended the game with 32 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds. He scored 18 in the fourth quarter, was a +9 on the floor. So he ended up bouncing back, but the start of the game, the first half, he was just so bad, and the Pistons had a hole to dig themselves out of. So that was a big reason why they weren't able to pull this one out. But again, you lose by 3 to the Golden State Warriors, and Steph shoots 5 of 21. You feel like you probably should have been able to steal that game. But it is what it is. Like I said, the Pistons are on a good streak. They still have good vibes. You still should feel good about them. Just because they lose one game doesn't mean everything's, the sky's falling. But this was a tough loss, man. It was a tough loss. It was a tough loss. And it felt like a lot of the Pistons' issues were self-inflicted and could have been avoided, and they could have won the game. But, I mean, that's how it happens sometimes. Back end of a back-to-back, I'm sure that contributed somewhat to it. Third game in 4 nights. Sure, that contributed to it somewhat, but Pistons, I'm sure they feel like they should have won this game. But it is what it is. When we come back, I want to talk to you guys about some weaknesses that were really shown in this game by the Golden State Warriors, some things that Golden State really put on blast for the Detroit Pistons. And I don't think any of this stuff is really shocking, but kind of just puts it into perspective that, yes, you can still feel positive about the team and feel extremely high about the team, but also acknowledge that, like, okay, they have these things they have to improve on and these areas that have to be focused on if they want to continue to rise. We'll talk about what those things are when we come back. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of the endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers, no more wondering if you're missing out on deductions. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give you taxes their undivided attention. And while you get real-time updates on their progress, so you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today to get matched with your expert. Who's ready to take taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day? Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. So I want to thank you guys again for being Locked On Pistons, your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Another great way to support the podcast. I'm going to say it again. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're on our way to 10,000 subscribers. We're less than 700 away now. We're getting closer and closer and closer. You guys are starting to really help out. The ones who've been listening and watching and haven't subscribed. More and more of you guys are starting to, but still around 50% are watching and listening that aren't subscribed. So please, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, man. Best way to support the podcast. Help us reach our goal. All right, so in this game, there are some positives. Still, there were some positives. I want to talk about those later because there were definitely some silver linings. And some minor, minor bright spots that I would point out looking forward, or at least something to watch for moving forward. But I think most importantly, there were a lot of weaknesses shown tonight against the Golden State Warriors. And the first one that I think was made very clear, and it's not going to, I think this is something that's going to be a problem for the Pistons the rest of the year. I mean, it is what it is. They're going to have to find a way to navigate through it. But I think good teams are going to do the exact same thing Golden State did to the Pistons, which is Golden State from the absolute get-go said, you guys only have Cade who can create, and we're going to double the hell out of him. We're going to send all of our pressure to him, and we're going to see if anyone else on this court can create. And the Pistons just don't right now. Like they're trying to find answers. I mean, Tobias had a fine game, but he's not a creator. He's not creating his own advantages. Malik Beasley, he's not someone who's creating his own advantages. You know, they don't have anyone else that can do it. And in this game, you saw Golden State, especially in the first half, really were sending outright two at Cade. Like Draymond was playing roamer in the paint. It wasn't just regular help. Draymond was straight up roaming in the paint. They were trapping Cade on pick and rolls. Anytime Cade they had Dennis Schroeder guarding him, so Cade tried going to the post multiple times. And anytime he went to the paint or went to the post, they immediately sent a double at him. Teams are realizing, I think, good teams are going to realize that the Pistons don't have any other creators besides Cade, and they're just going to start doubling, setting all the pressure at him, all the attention at him. And look, Cade's good enough, what we've seen this year, Cade's good enough to where it won't be like a fully proof, plan to do. I mean, he still ended up with 32 points. He had 18 in the fourth quarter. Like, it's not going to be something that you can just do and it's just unbreakable. But it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be tough, especially when you only have one guy creating. Like, that's always going to be tough when you only have one guy that can create, especially when he leaves the floor. I mean, the Pistons lost by 3 in this game. Cade played 40 minutes. And in his 40 minutes, they were a +9. In Isaiah Stewart and Marcus Sasser minutes, which those were the 2 leading bench guys, -16 and -10. I mean, this last episode, we talked about how, Marcus Sasser kind of played the scoring role at the end of last game. He looked good. They should try to find a way to get him into the scoring role. And tonight, I mean, he didn't look very good at all. He wasn't able to get any kind of separation. Now, he was asked to play some backup point guard, but he also was on the floor quite a bit with Cade as well, and he just couldn't get anything going. He couldn't create separation away from the Golden State defenders. They were really getting physical with him, and he just wasn't really able to do anything, and he really struggled in his minutes, especially when Cade was off the floor. And outside of that, they don't have anybody else that can really play the point guard position. So, and I don't know if they're going to address it. I don't know if they are. But that's going to be, I mean, that's kind of been one of the main glaring issues all year. But now without Ivy, I think that's going to be, or continue to be, the most highlighted weakness of this team. Of one, when Cade goes to the bench, how they play. That's not looked good almost every time the last few games. And 2, when Cade's on the floor, if teams have the personnel to just feel like they can send doubles at Cade and kind of rotate on the weak side and make up for it, then it's going to be tough. It's going to be absolutely tough. So I'll go ahead and let you guys know. I know I told you guys that I had a take that I was going to tell you about if the Pistons won. They didn't win, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. It's just, it is what it is. I was going to come on the podcast and say the Pistons should go out and make a move to get another creator. I'm not saying they should go out and waste their first-round picks. I'm not saying they should go out and try to trade Ivy or Duren or, Asar. I'm not saying they have to do that. That's not what I'm recommending. I'm not recommending ruining your assets or your future. There's a perfect median where you try to get better without just completely screwing yourself. You can make moves to get better without just saying screw the future. There's a way to do it, I promise. And I was going to come on here and say the Pistons really should go out and try to get a creator, and try to get as good as possible this year in Jaden Ivey's absence, and then come back next year with Jaden Ivey healthy. So I know they still lost, but I still kind of feel that way. I still do, because I think it's going to be something that is a big issue. Another thing, a minor thing that the Pistons do in the half court that really bugs me, I just want to point this out. When Cade posts up, I don't understand why they have Isaiah Stewart in the paint, especially when he's on the floor with Asar. Like, for example, there was a lot of possessions in the first half where it was Cade, Asar, and Stu on the floor. And when Cade goes to post up Schroeder, they're already double teaming him off of Asar's guy. So you're clogging the paint even more when you have not only Asar's guy roaming off of him, but then you also have Stu's guy just sitting in the paint because Stu's also in the paint. Like, if Stu is spaced out to the corner when Cade's posting up, and then they want to send that double off of Asar's guy, now there's an open floor for Asar to cut into. But in this game, Asar is cutting into open space, I guess. Cade tries to hit him, and he's catching the ball with Stu's guy just sitting right in front of him. It's just traffic. It's something that's bothered me all year. I don't know why they do that. When Duren's on the floor, I get it. He can't shoot. But when Stu's on the floor and Cade's posting up, Stu should not be sitting on the block, especially when he's on the floor with Asar, because they're already going to help off of Asar guy. But Asar can't cut. There's no open space to cut into if Stu and his guy is also already in the paint. If Stu's spacing his defender out, the paint's open and there's cutting lanes open. And they wouldn't be able to do that. They wouldn't have been able to do that. I don't understand why the Pistons didn't make that adjustment. Space Stu out. If they want to send a double at Cade, have Asar cut into that open space, or Ron Holland cut into that open space, and then they would have been able to take advantage of it. But they were doubling with Stu also in the paint. It was just like, there's no way you're going to make offense out of this. There's no spacing. It's terrible on the floor. It's just, that really bothers me. That's just one thing that happens. I don't get it. I don't understand how it doesn't make any sense to me, but it is what it is. Another reason, that wasn't the only reason why they lost, obviously. One of the other weaknesses I feel like that were really shown, look, you guys know I'm a larger sample size guy, right? And I don't like tripping over one game sample sizes. So with that said, Simone Fontecchio just hasn't been good this year, man. I mean, it is what it is. Simone, this past game, he gave a breath of life. Last game I said, maybe he's turned the corner, but then he comes out this game. And look, the same things, like, the stuff that Simone is doing is not because he's coming off of a surgery in the offseason. The decisions he's making at inopportune times kill the Pistons. First of all, they were attacking him on defense in the fourth quarter, and they were just getting whatever they wanted against him defensively. Now, I get why JB had Simone on the floor for the entire fourth quarter, or had Simone on the floor, because he didn't want them to roam off of Asar Iran. Like that, he didn't want to have to deal with that. He wanted to open the floor up as much as possible for Cade. I get the reason. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand the reason. At least there's reason to it. I'm not going to push too much against it because I get it. I understand why. Decisions last year by coaching staff, I didn't even understand the why, so I was pretty mad. This, I can understand why he was doing it. But the problem is Simone just hasn't been good. Like, he just hasn't. He's been struggling defensively. He's been struggling on the glass. He wasn't able to secure any of these loose balls or rebounds on the defensive glass. He was getting attacked routinely on the defensive end. And then offensively, there was a possession, man. Actually, let me just go. How many turnovers did he have? He had 2 turnovers in this game. Like I say, you can handle high turnovers from your high usage guys. Low usage guys should not be having multiple turnovers. Those kill you. And Simone just continues. I don't understand, like, why he's putting the ball on the floor so much and trying to dribble. It doesn't create good offense. It almost always is a turnover. Like, almost always. There was a possession in the fourth quarter. The Pistons, I believe, had a 3-point game. And Cade runs this action. They run this action to get Cade the ball at the top of the key. He starts off ball, and he runs around an off-ball screen on the left wing. He's coming to get the ball. But they've given the ball to Simone. And Simone, instead of getting the ball back to Cade, he tries driving and forcing up a shot and misses. Golden State comes down and scores. Like that, it's one play. It's one possession. But at that time in the fourth quarter when they're surging and you have the ball and you have momentum, like those are like inopportune mistakes and inopportune decisions or bad decisions at terrible times that just kill you. And he's had way too many of those that come from him trying to put the ball on the floor. I don't know who on the Pistons has told Simone that he needed to add the off the dribble game, but he, like, stop. Just like that. No one needs that. No one needs that. Just catch and shoot. Catch and shoot. If someone closes out hard, then it's straight line drive, dunk. Straight line drive, layup, foul. Like that should be it. That should be it. It should not be any kind of self-creation. Should not be any type of playmaking. Either I'm catching, shooting, catching, passing, or I'm going to catch, tack, close out, straight line drive. Well, those would be your 3 options with Simone. But, I mean, in this game, he was 1 of 7. And he was just not good. And he hasn't been good for a lot of this season. So, I'm hoping he turns it around at some point. But he just hasn't looked comfortable at all this year. And he struggled for most of this year. It's been tough to watch. So, I mean, it is what it is. So, let me know in the comment section down below, man, what you guys think about the weaknesses that Golden State was able to showcase and put on display for the Pistons. Also, one of the other weaknesses we kind of talked about in the first segment, but the Pistons' inability to guard in space. I mean, I've talked about this a ton. When they're able to kind of guard at the rim and kind of roam at the rim and not have to guard guys in space or guard bigs in space, they do a much better job. But anytime you get, trying to force their bigs or force the team to defend in space, they just struggle mightily, and they could not guard Golden State in space tonight. The movement, the spacing, they just could not guard them. They were giving up open 3 and open layup, I felt like, every single possession. Every single possession. They're lucky Golden State didn't hang 130 on them. Like, if Steph was on tonight, if Steph at least hits 40% of his threes, they win by 20. Because Steph got a lot of open threes. So, but those are the 3 things, man. Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. How you guys feel about these weaknesses and how do you think they can solve these weaknesses? Again, comment section down below or over on Twitter. When we come back, there were some silver linings from this game that I want to get to and some things to watch for moving forward with the Pistons. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Definitely happened to me, especially with multiple gym memberships that I went and tried out and forgot I was paying for. Saved me with that. It's almost like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money saves you in this regard. It's a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscription and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon to cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster. Again, with rocketmoney.com/lockedon. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so here are some good things that did come about this, or come out of this game, I would say. First off, Jalen Duren. Look, we've grilled Jalen Duren this year. And I don't think, this is the thing, Jalen Duren, we all are aware, he shouted out the podcast, I have it pinned on my Twitter, he's a good kid, good person, he has a ton of potential. I've been consistent with that. He has a ton of potential offensively. But I don't think any of us have been unfair. I have a job to do, I have to be honest, and the numbers don't lie, and how bad he struggled defensively this year is not a lie. That's not me making it up, that's just the truth. So we've been hard on him this year with his defense. However, over the last 5 games before this game against the Golden State Warriors, the Pistons had a defensive rating with 102.8 with Jalen Duren on the floor. They've been 7.3 points better with Duren on the floor the last 5 games. That is a completely different story from before the season. If you go back to the last 10 games, it's completely flipped. They're 14 points worse with Duren on the floor. So the last 5 games, he's picking up, he's getting better, playing better in the defensive end of the floor, and is impacting the game more. Now, I do think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Ausar has been on the floor with him, and Ausar helps make up for what Jalen Duren lacks, and helps make the defensive end easier on him. I do think that is the case. But along with this, I should say, along with the last 5 games, in this game against Golden State, I thought he had multiple really good defensive reps, and he had 3 blocks in this game, along with the steal. He was incredibly impactful, I thought. Was a plus 13 in this game. I thought, again, he struggles to guard in space, but the whole team does. He's not going to be perfect. But if you can get the type of defense you got from him in this game consistently, then you would feel a lot better about him moving forward. And I thought specifically in the first half he was better. I thought in the later half when they went zone, he struggled a little bit in the zone, but I'm not going to really hold that against them because they just you don't practice to run zone defense. So when you have Draymond rolling down in the short roll and then someone in the dunker spot, you're kind of putting him in a 2-on-1 situation. I'm not going to put that on him. In the first half when they were playing man, I thought he was doing his job pretty well and he was being pretty active, especially around the rim. So defensively, I do think he's been better as of recent, really recent, the last 6 games. So hopefully that's something he's getting better and it's turning. And it's this is something we're going to look back at and say, okay, this is the turn of his season. He did actually start to get better. So I want to give him credit because he has, and we've been hard on him. But I'm a fair person. I want all these guys to succeed. And when they do play well, I'll shout it out. And Jalen Duren's been much better defensively the last few games, last 5 to 6 games. Along with this, the main criticism I've had, or one of the main criticisms I had about Jalen Duren, isn't really about Jalen Duren itself. It's about how they're using him offensively. He was turning the ball over so much at the beginning of the year that JB basically took the ball out of his hands completely. And Duren with the ball in his hands is what is supposed to separate him from other bigs. That was what made him special. his ball skills, his playmaking ability, his ability to attack off the dribble from the high post area, from the elbow area, and get all the way to the rim and finish. Like, that was what was supposed to make him special, that he's flashed. And they completely removed that for a large majority of this season. Completely took it out the offense because he was turning the ball over so much at the beginning of the year. The last few games, you've been starting to see him get the ball a little bit more. Especially in this game against Golden State, he had quite a few really nice plays off the dribble, especially when he led a fast break in the first quarter and then threw an oop to Cade. That's what has made Jalen Duren the prospect special. It's what he's capable of doing off the dribble. It's what he's capable of doing with the ball in his hands. Now, you still get some tough turnovers, like the one he had to Tobias in the third quarter. Terrible bounce pass. It wasn't open. He forced it. But my opinion is this. If you're going to have Jalen Duren on the floor, you need to try to utilize those ball skills. Because if you're just eliminating those from the offense, then that's why, to me, there's no need to even have Jalen Duren playing then. Because you're basically asking him to be Clint Capella with the Rockets, but that's not what Duren is. That's not what his play style is. That's not what made him special. What makes him a special prospect is his ball skills. So either you believe in those and try to develop them and let him get those reps, and he does better with them, or he doesn't, and then you're kind of basically saying, well, we need a different type of center. That's been my thing with it the whole time. Is that, okay, well, if you're not going to give him his ball skills or his ball reps, then, like, what are we doing here then? Like, what's the point? So over the last few games, they have started to give him the ball a little bit more, and especially in this Golden State game, he had a few highlights that looked really good with the ball in his hands. I'd love to see if he's able to pick up more of these reps without turning the ball over so much. He did have 2 turnovers in this game, which I'm sure JB probably didn't like, especially that turnover to Tobias. But I'm really hopeful that they can increase some of his reps and he doesn't turn the ball over so much. If he can avoid turning the ball over, I think they'll continue to increase those reps. And I think that could really help the Pistons half-court offense, especially without Jaden Ivey on the floor. But he has to be smart with the ball and not turn the ball over. If he can do that, you can take advantage of his playmaking ability and his ability to get to the rim and create for himself from the high post area. But I thought you saw some of that tonight against Golden State, which was really encouraging, and I hope we see more of it moving forward. Because that's the type of Jalen Duren. That's why you draft him, and that's why you believe he could possibly be your starting center of the future. You have to utilize that stuff. Not utilizing it, you might as well be saying he's not our big of the future. Like, that's how I feel about it. The other positive coming out of this game is I thought Ausar and Ron played fine. I thought those two guys gave some positives in this game. Ausar looked really sick, by the way. I was at the game. He did not look good at all. Like, on the bench. Like, on the floor, he was 3 of 4. He hit a 3, had some nice finishes around the basket, made some impactful defensive plays. Like, I thought he was Ausar. But he wasn't able to do it for long at all. And on the bench, he did not look good at all. I don't know what sickness he's dealing. I don't know if he has flu or what, but he did not look good. He was coughing. He was like, he did not. And then even after like 3-minute stretches on the floor, he looked like he was out of breath. So whatever sickness he's dealing with, it's probably the flu. I know a lot of people are dealing with the flu right now. So hopefully he gets better. These few days really help him because he did not look, he looked really sick. So, but I thought he still played well. And then Ron hit 3 threes in this game. He shot 3 of 8 from deep. Because, like I said, Draymond was roaming off of him and Ausar. Ausar hit his 1-3. Ron Holland shot 3 of 8 from deep. I thought that's really good to see. The fact that Ausar was able to hit 1, the fact that Ron was able to take 3 and continue to shoot and take 8. I'd love to see Ausar do that when guys roam off of him. Especially when, if Stu's going to sit in the paint, just spot up and hit the 3 when it kicks out to you. But Ron is a lot more confident in his outside shot right now, and he hit 3 of those. So I thought those were some really big positives and some really nice silver linings to pull out of this game, that your two guys that you're trying to develop offensively, you're trying to develop as shooters, when they were both being roamed off of and they were forced to shoot the ball, they shot a combined, 4 of 9? I mean, you'll take that. You'll take that. That's what you want out of them. So I thought those are some silver linings. Jalen Duren playing better as of late. Hopefully he continues it. And then Ausar and Ron both hitting 3s. I thought that was really nice to see and important. So, but that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think. Comment section down below or over on Twitter @KookHill. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Leave us 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Till next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Till next time, peace out, everybody.